Good evening. Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media consistent with the Public Meetings Act, and that advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills at which formal action may be taken. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda. Roll call.
Mr. Baker?
Here.
Ms. Cooper? Mrs. DeGraffray? Here. Ms. Gills? Mr. Joyce?
Here.
Ms. Nathans? Mrs. Santoro? Mrs. Tober? Mrs. Rye? Here. And Mrs. Brenda?
Here.
5, 6.
Okay. The Open Public Meetings Act authorizes a public body to exclude the public from the portion of a meeting at which specified topics are to be discussed under circumstances where the public consideration of such topics will clearly endanger the public or where the personal privacy or guaranteed rights of individuals whose activities or affairs are to be discussed would be clearly in danger and unwarranted invasions, and the matters about to be presented for discussion clearly meet the circumstances test of such. The Board of Education of Somerset Hills now adjourns its public session to reconvene an executive session for the purpose of discussing the following: personnel, student matters, contracts, negotiations, and litigations. Can I have a motion to go into executive, please? Good evening, everyone. The board has just come out of executive session. We would like to invite you all to stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. For the last, roll call.
Mr. Baker? Ms. Cooper? Mrs. DeGraffray? Ms. Gills? Mr. Joyce?
Here.
Ms. Nathans? Here. Mrs. Santoro? Mrs. Tober? Mrs. Rye? Here. And Mrs. Brenda?
Here. Now, Dr. Dempsey, for the last time, would you please give the report of the superintendent?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mrs. Brenda. We're going to kick it off as we usually do with our middle schoolers. Tonight we welcome Nate and Anat, who are, I understand, the stars of Latin Junior. All right. So use your best skills, projection, and get on up there to that microphone.
Good evening. My name is Nate Denicola, and I'm here to speak to you from BMS. I will be playing the lead role of Aladdin in our upcoming production of Aladdin Jr. For the next month, we will be working hard to make this play as good as it can be. We will be rehearsing on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. As we get closer to the show, the rehearsals will get longer and be on more days in order to fully prepare us for the production. After around a month and a half of practice, there will be 2 showings, one on the 2nd of March and another on the 3rd of March. Another upcoming event in BMS is the New Year, New Me 2023 celebration. The New Year, New Me event will be on a Friday, the 3rd of February. Students have the option of participating by wearing dress-up formal wear to school with a $1 entry fee. Sales have started this week during all lunches. All of the proceeds from this event will be going to Imagine NJ, which is this year's State Student Council charity program that offers support to children in times of grief. This event is celebrating the new year and our New Year resolutions. Now, I'm going to turn this over to Anat.
Hi, I'm Anat Sani and I'm also an 8th grader at BMS. I'll be playing Jasmine in Aladdin Jr. This musical production will feature singing and dancing from 7th and 8th graders, and we hope you'll all come and watch it and support us. Currently in 8th grade, we are figuring out what classes to take for next year and finding out our interests. We have all had a meeting with our future high school counselor, and we have been talking to our teachers, parents, and peers about what classes they recommend us to take. It would have been a stressful job, but thanks to our teachers who helped us and led the way, it made the process a lot less stressful. Since we have had a lot of guidance on our path to high school, it makes us feel more confident rather than scared about it. We've also been finding out more and more about the extracurricular activities that high school has to offer, such as clubs and sports. We've been matching up our interests to the many electives the school has to offer as well. There are a wide variety of electives, such as ones that involve art, writing, technology, and music. There's something for everyone. Personally, I really like doing musical theater, so I chose that as one of my electives for high school. Speaking of musical theater, we hope to see you all at our show on March 2nd and 3rd. Tickets will be sold in advance. Thank you and have a great night.
We'll give us some updates on the high school.
Good evening, my name is Audrey Panic, and I am one of your student representatives from Bernards High School. Thank you for giving me your time and attention tonight. I, along with the rest of the student body, greatly appreciate it. This past Saturday, a group of AP Physics students won first place in 2 categories at the annual Physics Olympics competition, taking home gold for Bernards High School. The class of 2023 attended Night of the Stars this past Friday at the Old Mill Inn, dressing up as various characters and celebrities while having fun on the dance floor alongside their classmates. Thank you to the parents who organized the event and continue to give the class of 2023 a memorable senior year. Last Thursday, the Bernards High School and Bernardsville Middle School choir programs collaborated to host BHS Sings, a day-long choral workshop featuring Ridge High School's choir director, Ms. Carol Beadle. At the conclusion of the workshop, students grades 6 through 12 performed 3 songs for parents and staff. The Student Council is hosting a winter formal dance on Friday, February 10th in the BHS cafeteria. The dance is open to students grades 9 through 12 and will begin at 6 p.m. A $10 entry fee is required for admission. Rehearsals for the spring musical, the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, have begun. The musical will take place on March 10th, 11th, and 12th in the BHS PAC. Students interested in earning extra credit in their math classes are encouraged to attend the next Math League competition, scheduled to occur sometime in February. For every question answered correctly, students will receive 1 point of extra credit in their math class. The second marking period ends this Friday, January 27th. Students must submit any missing work as soon as possible, as well as communicate with their teachers if they recognize any errors on PowerSchool. Harvard Model Congress, an in-person debate and mock trial conference hosted by Harvard University, will take place at the end of February. A select group of students, grades 10 through 12, will attend, debating with other high school students from across the world on various topics as they take on the role of an assigned political official. Key Club is hosting its annual Teacher Dare fundraiser to raise money for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. Students will have the opportunity to vote for their preferred dare by donating to the corresponding envelope. At the conclusion of the fundraiser, the teacher with the highest earning dare will need to complete their dare. I also wanted to take this time to thank the teachers and staff at BHS. Your hard work and dedication continue to inspire myself and my peers to try our best and achieve our goals. We deeply appreciate all you do for the students. Thank you for your time.
All right, and now I feel badly because last time that Dr. Edgerton and Ms. Barner were here to present results, I sort of indicated that perhaps they were not as exciting as our student presenters. They're back again. No pressure. We have already heard from them this year about the NJSLA results from last spring. The last time they were here, they talked about the NJGPA results, and in their swan song, they will be presenting the Start Strong results from the fall of 2022. It's all you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. As Dr. Dempsey mentioned, we're going to present today results of Start Strong assessment that were administered last fall for students in grades 4 through 10. A little bit about the assessment itself. It's different type of assessment. You can think about this as a formative assessment. Originally, it was created in response to pandemic, and also last year, Last year, it was used to satisfy federal requirement for the testing, for the state testing. This year, it wasn't the case. Assessments were brief, 45-60 minutes. They were done in person on computer, provided very quick results. The assessments were expressly designed as standards-based complement to resources that are already used by our educators in the classroom to evaluate the needs of our students. And they should be analyzed alongside with other important measures of student outcomes, such as NJ/SLA, more expensive assessment, benchmark assessment, and other teacher-created assessments. What these assessments are not, they do not replace standard-based benchmark assessments. They also don't replace they don't replace our local assessment. They also don't replace NJ/SLA, standard statewide summative assessments, and they're not exactly predictable of the results.
So one main thing to understand about this test is the difference in purpose. This is interpreted and used very differently from NJSLA and the NJGPA, the previous assessments we've reported on. As Dr. Egger said, these are a formative assessment. So it's assessment that is given prior to teaching to see what level of readiness students are coming in on, as opposed to an end-of-year summative assessment, which is to see how much of the grade level content have they achieved. So the reason we have an assessment like this is so that we can get that sort of baseline data of students and see their readiness level, their preparedness to work with current grade level standards. So if we see an area where there is a weakness, we know that's something we kind of need to fill in prior to maybe instructing what would be on grade level. The items that were used on the test were all released from NJSLA Item Bank. So they are the types of questions that will be seen on NJSLA or that have been seen on previous versions of the test. And it completely consisted of both the evidence-based responses, which is multiple choice, and the technology enhanced, which are like the drag and drop versions of the questions. There were not any essays or prose constructed response. And the reason for that on this assessment is for the speed at which we can get results back. Yep, all computer graded. Again, administered in 45 to 60 minutes. And something that's really nice about this assessment is that they give us back the actual item analysis for what the students took. So as a grade level teacher, I can look at my class, I can look at the 10 questions they got in ELA and drill down to question 7 was a question this class struggled on. What was that asking? What standard was it tied to? And also, how were they getting it wrong? What did they get distracted by? What was their misconception? And then that helps me to determine this is something I need to shore up. This is something I need to think about in my instruction moving forward this year. So the alignment of how this worked. So ELA grades 4 through 10 and math grades 4 through 8 took their assigned grade level assessment. However, that assessment is based on the previous school year's standards. So a 4th grader took the ELA grade 4. The questions were aligned to 3rd grade. Again, if you're recalling how this test is used, I'm using this test to see what's their readiness. So I want to see what they know from last year in order to prepare for how I can help them as I teach them this year.
And I'll add in mathematics and science, it's a little bit less straightforward. In Algebra 1, if you remember, all our students taking Algebra 1 will be taking this assessment even if they're in middle school. The assessment was based on the previously scheduled course, which is, it's okay. which was Mathematics 8, and our middle grade students did not take Mathematics 8 course, so the results is not exactly as helpful. Same for geometry. Algebra 2 was based on Algebra 1 standards, and science assessments were based on the previous grade band. That means in grade 6, students were tested on standards that were taught in grades 3, 4, 5, upper elementary. In grade 9, it was all science middle school standards, and in grade 12, they were all high school standards. While interpreting results presented as a 3-level. Level 1, more support might be needed. Level 2, some support might be needed. And level 3, the highest level, less support might be needed. These support levels, they are derived directly from NG SLA performance level, although when we're interpreting them, it's not one-to-one interpretation. The highest level, less support might be needed, would correspond to level 4 and 5, usually on NG SLA, in ELA and mathematics, meeting expectations, exceeding expectations, and in science, again, 2 highest level, which in this case levels 3 and 4, proficient and advanced proficient. The middle level, some support might be needed, or level 2, as you saw now, will be this middle level, level 3 in NG SLA, math and ELA, or level 2, nearing proficiency, approaching expectations in both cases. And level 1, where strong support might be needed, that would correspond to level 1 and 2, did not quite yet meet the expectations or partially met expectations in the standard NG SLA, math and ELA, or the very first level below proficient. So again, that's where they were derived from, but it's not exactly the same interpretation. And I wanted to add that this test itself did not quite test the whole scope of all the standards. They were the most important standards from the previous year.
So this slide, we have to just show you the total number of students tested at each grade level for the various ELA, math, and science. This is helpful to see for when we start looking at the percentages on the next couple slides. You kind of get an idea of how many students is 50%, 10%, that kind of thing. Also worth noting, the only numbers that might look low compared to our enrollment are the science grade 12. That's where we had a lot of refusals. They're seniors. This does not count for anything. They are sadly halfway out the door. So we did have a lot of refusals. So that 140, that is not representative of our full senior class population. Diving in right into the results. So here, this is ELA. You see the grades going down the left-hand side of the column, and then when we go across, you will see the first 2 columns, more support needed, the count, how many students, and remember we just saw the totals, and then the percentages alongside that. Middle 2 columns, some support is needed, last 2 columns, less support is needed. Again, we're happy with what we're seeing with how many students need less support. So those are our students who are viewed as primed and ready to go for the next school year. Some things worth noting in these results are our 9th grade less support needed students, that's 71%. If you recall, when we did our NJSLA data, we had our 8th graders, so last year, they're current 9th graders. The 8th grade data from last year had 50% of our students earning advanced proficient. So why I'm excited about this is that I see they had a summer off, they came into 9th grade and they still held on to a lot of that background and a lot of that content and a lot of that know-how. So that's a really nice thing for us to see that what we're teaching kids is carrying forward. Another interesting 2 grades that I sort of have my eye on are both our 4th grade and our 6th grade. My reasons being, fourth grade, when the pandemic happened and they were pulled out of class because we went virtual, were in first grade. So when you think about what instruction looks like at first grade, it's very foundational in learning how to read. So this cohort has had, almost their entire foundational years have had some sort of upset. Similarly, sixth grade were in third grade when the pandemic hit. And for me, in our curriculum, and our third grade teachers who are here can attest to it, third grade is another big shift. So we're moving away from a lot of the foundational work we do in K2, and third grade is sort of the intro into comprehension, right? Where we're moving away from decoding and fluency, and now we're getting at, what is this text telling me? What do I know about character? What do I know about themes? And again, they're interesting grades for me because it's like their initial foundation year was interrupted, and now we might be seeing some cracks, we'll call them, in that foundation. So they're just sort of an interesting cohort that I've had my eye on, and we've done a lot of work in both buildings, thinking about this. But those were kind of the three parts of this data that stood out to me.
Thank you. And this is a very similar slide for mathematics. And I wouldn't repeat everything that Ms. Barna said. We are looking at some particular cohorts, and again, very interesting similar patterns emerge. The only thing I want to add as a new note, you can probably see outliers for grade 8 and for algebra 1. And those are a function of the test and who is taking those tests. In grade 8, if you remember, the only students who took grade 8 tests are 8th graders who are not in algebra 1 and geometry. And now algebra 1 students, not all of them took mathematics 8 course, and thus the discrepancy. So those particular low percentages on the right for algebra 1 is definitely not representative of what students will show us at the end of the year, what they're learning. So it's a little discrepancy between where they were in September and what considered to be readiness for algebra 1. And this is slide for science. Again, I will probably repeat myself from the previous presentation. Science is a complicated test. It was administered a couple of times now. Students have a huge amount of content that they tested on. So all 6th graders again tested on entire upper elementary, all 9th graders, entire middle school. And the percentages, although may look like they're pretty low, but the state percentages are really, really low. So it's a difficult test, and we are working on improvement in this area. And this is for comparison, as 2022 results were not released yet. This is a last year's state result, so you can see the percentages in LA. They're all in 40s and 50s. Our percentages is definitely higher. In mathematics, you can see those are 20s. Algebra 1 and mathematics grade 8, you can see in teens. That's what state showed. Same exact pattern. And in science, you also can see a little deep in science 9. It's not just us, it's statewide.
I think also worth noting, I don't think we've said this yet, how comparing our 2022 Start Strong to 2021 Start Strong is not a helpful comparison, in that, one, we gave them at different times. So 2022, we actually gave very early in the school year. I think it was week 3. That was a big lift to get that off the ground within the 3rd week of school. Whereas in 2021, we gave that assessment in October. So kids already had about 5 weeks of school under their belt. So we did have very different numbers, and that even came from the state, how it's not helpful based on the testing windows to look at our individual results year to year. Okay, so we're switching back to English language arts. These are the subgroups for which we are mandated to report on. Again, remember, any subgroup that has over 10 students, we're mandated by state to report to the public. So these are the subgroups that fall into that category for our district. Worth noting that possibly when you're looking at the categories that you see in other demographics, please know that a student could fall into 2 categories in that section. The only actually place they can't is current L and former L. So current English learner, former English learner. However, our economically disadvantaged and our student with disabilities could have overlap where a student is in both of those categories. So that's something to think about. The data we're getting here, you may notice there is another category. See, I told you this would be very exciting. And that is the former English learner category. So normally we just had English language learner, but for whatever reason on this assessment, it's split out. Why we're really excited about this data is because this is helping us see students who have exited our program, who have been in our ESL program and are now no longer in it, they are former ELs, are designated as needing much less support. So that's a kudos to our programming and our teachers because we're helping those kids. You know, we're kind of closing that gap. If you look at the current number to former, that's what we want to see. So that was something we were very excited to see here.
Thank you. And again, very similar slide for mathematics and very similar pattern. When we were looking at those categories in the bottom, the English language learner, current and former, you can see a noticeable growth between these 2 categories. Again, this is the first time we see that split, and we will take this and start reporting this as well. The state does it for us now, and this is great data to have. Another low category as economically disadvantaged. Again, there's probably a big overlap there, and we're aware of this, and this is across all the different subjects. And you can see that by ethnicity, you have all the numbers as well. And this is science. Again, very, very similar patterns. Similar percentages, they in general lower as the test was more difficult, but the patterns are all the same. Again, more than 10 students, and we do have this report here. And we come to the end of our presentation.
So some observations that we noticed besides those that we gave along the way. One of them, remember, we don't have the current 2022 state results. However, we do have the fall 21. And it is worth noting that, you know, our school district, our results from this year had a smaller percentage of students that needed more support compared to the fall 21 data that we do have to compare to. Next steps, I think, again, really trying to reiterate how this is used so much differently than previous data. We've looked at these results with cohorts, we've looked at the item analysis, we've had conversations, whether in team meetings or department meetings. We've also used them in our processes for identifying students who are getting pull-out support. For example, at the middle school, we used this data, their running record data, and then our iReady benchmark. We kind of triangulated those 3 data points to create a list of students who needed support. So this is just sort of added to a repertoire of assessments or benchmark diagnostics that we already had in place. And again, it's nice to have multiple ways to look at student success and use that to make determinations about what they might need instructionally. Many of these things that are here are things that we've talked about in the past. You know, we're using that data, like I said, to do those small pull-out groups or to do the after-school labs, and we're looking forward into summer. And then we're also, you know, thinking about what's going on for our ELLs. What kind of supports do we need to continue using for them? Or what kind of things do we need to add at this point?
Right. this is just another point of consideration, and the state uses it exactly the same way. For them, it's also formative assessment, and they probably will be looking at longitudinal data over several years. That's our best guess. We do not know if this test is here to stay, but we will know when we know. And the last slide, the reports were mailed home on January 5th. They are also available online. And finish on this point.
Perfect. Thank you both for all your time and effort. A lot of information shared. The curriculum committee did have an in-depth discussion about this presentation, and know that it will be posted online for the community tomorrow, so anybody can refer to it at that point going forward. Thank you, Olga. Thank you, Alexis. Lastly, I just wanted to take a minute. January is typically New Jersey's School Board Recognition Month. I think it always warrants reminders that the people sitting at this table, other than those of us who are employed by the district, are volunteers who are here to support their community and give up their time with no financial contribution or recognition. So I, as a citizen, want to just thank all of you for that, and maybe a round of applause for our board. And that's all I've got.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Dempsey. And if you could just indulge us for a moment and join me out front of the dais here for a quick moment. In the front of the dais, yes, thank you. As I stated, tonight, this concludes your final report as superintendent. And the last time that you will be joining us at a monthly meeting as the superintendent of the Somerset Hill School District. I will keep this brief, as I have spoken previously, as to what an asset I believe Dr. Dempsey has been to the SHSD in this role. I am fortunate because I have been able to work with her in numerous capacities. While I was on the Beverly HSA board, I was able to collaborate with her in her role as assistant principal. I was able to do that again when I served on the BMS HSA board, only this time it was in her role as principal. And now we will end 3 years of good work together as board member and superintendent as she moves on to whatever may be next in her professional journey. Dr. Dempsey has always been a consummate professional and led with consistency and conviction. In every capacity she has served, she has made decisions based on extensive research and after much review and with one guiding principle. How will this impact students? The last several years have brought unprecedented circumstances. It would have been easy to be swept up in emotions and the competing pressures and influences. I can proudly say she never once let that happen. It was and has always been what was best for the students and all who comprise the Somerset Hill School District. Unfortunately, progress in the world of education is slow, so the true and vast benefits of her work here are still likely years away. But as those results continue to unfold, I will remember when and how the groundwork was laid. As she prepares to leave us, Dr. Dempsey is providing us with a deep and detailed analysis of academic data on key district subgroups, attendance and discipline data surrounding accelerated math pathways, and her resulting recommendations based on this analysis, which we'll hear more about in the curriculum report. This information will only serve to further move this district forward and allow us to best serve all of our students. This has been her home literally and figuratively for so long. In fact, I just recently learned that you even did your student teaching here. So saying goodbye is certainly bittersweet. I wish her all the best in whatever comes next and thank her for her dedication to this district and community. You most certainly will be missed.
like to say a few words as well. I just wanted to thank Dr. Dempsey for her years of service as a teacher, principal, and superintendent, and for her tremendous dedication to the district. I echo the words of Mrs. Brenda. Dr. Dempsey has been a gifted leader and a tenacious advocate for the students of this district, and always has their best interests and those of the community in mind. I just wanted to point out one of the district's most important accomplishments under her leadership. The percentage of students passing the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment, NJSLA, in both English and language arts and math increased over the pandemic and during her tenure as superintendent. Our Hispanic population, in particular, has seen substantial improvements in NJSLA scores. In ELA alone, the percentage of the percentage of Hispanic students who passed the NJSLA increased by more than 40% since 2017. These improvements are particularly impressive considering they occurred in spite of the substantial disruption in education in 2020 and 2021 due to the pandemic. These results are remarkable, and I thank Dr. Dempsey, along with other members of our administration and teaching staff, deserve to be commended for this accomplishment. Of course, as Mrs. Brenda noted, this is only one of her many achievements during her tenure. And while we have much to do to narrow some of the achievement gaps in our district, Dr. Dempsey has forged a path for future superintendents to continue this important work. Thank you, Dr. Dempsey, for being so accessible, so dedicated, and such an asset to the district. I so appreciate all that you've done for the students of our district, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Everybody for your kind words. Just always know it is a team effort. We mention our administrative team, we mention our teachers, and our wonderful students who work so very hard. So thank you all for the opportunities. I'm grateful to have been a part of this organization. And now,
I'd like
turn it over. Oh, Bob.
Everybody can talk.
All right, go ahead.
If they want to. Anyway, I want to thank you personally for helping this board navigate the last 4.5 years. I want to talk about so many good qualities. I want to mention two, so I'll keep it short. The first one is you've been very accessible for me and for other board members to go to you and ask questions and help us understand why things are the way they are, what we need to do. The second item is your decision-making process. As an engineer, I know that good math drives good decisions, and you, of all the people I've worked with, are excellent at getting the data to make the right decision. And I really appreciate that, and I will miss that. But also, as we go in to hire a new superintendent, and I worked under 3 superintendents, I'm going to take qualities from all 3 of them and try to get them into our next superintendent. I'm going to miss you very much. Thank you.
What will I do without you? I would be remiss were I not to thank Gretchen. Gretchen and I have worked alongside each other for, I think, 18 years, 17 or 18. On my first day of work at Bedwell, Gretchen was kind enough to show me how to do car duty. And there is an art, it is an art at Bedwell to do car rider duty, that you cannot do that incorrectly. So I thank you for that. Thank you for that. I will never forget it. I also want to thank you for being such an incredible colleague and friend. You're the smartest person I know and the hardest working person I know. And you have always, always, always put of kids first.
Thank you. I love it.
And there's no way that I'm not going to say something. You only grow up in this role, Gretchen. The first thing I did on this board was start the superintendent search process. And that landed with you. And it is certainly a vote and a decision that I am proud of to this day and have never wavered on. You have led this district with a level of intelligence that is to be respected and a work ethic like no other. But most importantly, a love for all kids and their educational process. I loved walking into your office after you had set it up, and proudly displayed was the work that had been given to you by students along the path, and you were so excited to tell us about it. So, you know, your love for the kids has been the guiding light through all of this. So this position is not for the faint of heart. We have learned that in many different ways, and you have taken on that responsibility with unwavering commitment. You have balanced the need to guide this district where your expertise and professional education suggests you go, but balancing that with answering to the community that you serve. And you have done that with grace and dignity in very challenging times. And you have laid a path that, as many others have said, will be the foundation for going forward for our next superintendent and anybody who comes to work at this district. You have given me a love of data that I never thought I would have. So for that, I appreciate, and I certainly know how utilizing that information makes for good decision making. I wish you the best, and know that all your future endeavors, either professional or personal, will be met with the same level of commitment you have showed us here. And I want to thank you for everything you've done, and wish you the best, and hope that the next chapter be fulfilling for you.
We are into it. Okay. Public comments for actionable agenda items. We very much welcome input from the public. Public comments are welcome at this time on any actionable agenda item. Towards the end of the meeting, there is a second public forum on any topic. Please state your name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, but an individual may speak a second time after all others who wish to speak on the topic have been heard. Please understand that our public forums are not structured as question and answer sessions, but are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. In instances where the board feels that there is a misunderstanding or inaccuracy, the board president or superintendent may address the comment in accordance with New Jersey statute. The board will not discuss matters regarding specific personnel. Public comments will be limited to 30 minutes. Thank you for your input and respect of one another. Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak at this time? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Madalena Violillo. I'm a teacher at Bernards High School. And I've been here in this district for the past 23 years, and several rounds of negotiations, certainly. At this juncture, after all that's been happening in the past few years, the contract was shared is at an impasse. As a board, you're composed
Ms. Viola?
Yes.
This moment is this public comment is for items that are on the agenda. So if there's an item on the agenda that you, round 2, you can say whatever you want.
Thank you.
Is there, okay, great, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment on an actionable agenda item? No? Okay. Can I have a motion to close public comment, please? No. Okay, next up, I will need a motion for the approval of the minutes. Okay, Mrs. DeGranpe, and a second. Mrs. Cooper, is there any discussion? Okay, then we'll need roll call.
Mrs. Rye? Yes. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper? Mrs. DeGranpe?
Yes.
Ms. Gills?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro? Mrs. Tover?
Yes.
And Mrs. Brenda?
I'll be abstaining from the December 14th minutes, but voting yes on the January 4th.
Okay, motion carries.
Next up, we're going to move on to the report of the Finance Committee. Mr. Baker.
Okay, the Finance Committee met on January the 18th for an hour and 15 minutes. All committee members were in attendance, along with Dr. Dempsey, Dr. Butler, and Mrs. Markham. We talked about four different things, mostly budget-oriented. We're going to be talking about the budget from now until April, so get ready. Whether you like it or not, we're going to talk about it. So in the last month or so, all the administrators and everybody who is in charge of spending our money put in their requests for the coming year. And so we put everything they wanted into the budget. And we looked at what money's coming in from taxpayers and from other sources. And we're about $963,000 apart, which is not a good thing. But every year we're in that $8 to $1 million spread. So this is not unusual. And it's going to be the job of the administration to figure out a way to trim that number down so it balances by March. So that's the hope. So just so you know, we're going to get a presentation to the public, the draft budget, at our March meeting, and we will have a public hearing on the budget at our April meeting, where we will vote on the budget. Okay. A big part of the budget we talked about were the projects that are coming up for the coming year, and I'd just like to go over those real quickly. As you know, we're going to do a replacement of the turf, which is projected to be about $830,000. We're going to upgrade the PAC Center lighting, get more modern lights in there so people can see better, can use the facility better, the plays will be better, everything will be improved. That's about $200,000 projected. The other big item is the media center renovation, which we've all voted on, and the bids are out. We think when everything's done, we're going to spend about $1 million, so that's what that is. Then we've got 7 or 8 projects that are smaller projects. I won't go into those, but we have 2 issues that we're going to go for a ROD grant, and a ROD grant is an abbreviation for Regular Operating District. Okay, I couldn't remember that one. So in the middle school and in Bedwell, the fire alarm system is antiquated and will need to be upgraded. It hasn't been touched in 25 years, and it's running out of its useful life. So that's $840,000 for both schools. And the Wi-Fi throughout the school district needs to be improved for $300,000. Both of those issues, because they talk about safety and technology, we can go for this ROD grant. So if we front the money, which is $1,140,000, and the state approves it, we're not going to do this unless the state approves it probably, and then we will get 40% back once it's finished, which is about almost $500,000 coming back. So that's a good way to get those 2 key projects done. So when you'll see on the board agenda, there's an action item to go out for the ROD grant. So Mrs. DeMarco will fill out all the paperwork on that and try to get that done as quickly as possible. We talked about the budget calendar, which is also on the agenda, just outlines what the dates we have to hit. We have to approve that. And I already talked about 2 or 3 of the key dates. And the last thing we talked about was the HVA system in the high school. The software needs to be updated, and the company who used to do it no longer does it. So Mrs. DeMarco and the Director of Facilities have met with a different vendor to get pricing and what needs to be done. So hopefully we'll get that on our next agenda maybe, or maybe the one after that. So that's what it is. So That's all we talked about. So I'd like to move action items 1 through 20, and I'll just mention number 20 is for Bedminster. It's the audit, the tuition, we're changing companies because the people who did the audit, Sarah, have moved to another company. So we've got the same people. Right, they got there. So anyway, so do I have a second on those 1 and 20? Thank you. Any discussion or questions about anything on the agenda or what we discussed? Seeing none, we'll do roll call.
Ms. Nathans, I just wanted to tell you that the people that did our calculations, they switched firms. So when I called WIS, they said the entire department moved. So it's just a name change. Okay. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper? Mrs. T. Grandpre?
Yes.
Ms. Gills? Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober? Mrs. Rye?
Yes.
And Mrs. Frenda?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to facilities and operations, Mrs. Santoro.
Thanks, Bob. You made my job easy. I just basically have 1 or 2 topics to touch on that you didn't cover in finance. All members were in attendance along with Dr. Dempsey, Dr. Butler, Dr. Nigel, Mr. Hoppy, and Will Ross of Brett Solgen Architects. And that will lead to the first item we discussed, which was the timing of the turf replacement project. And based on the input of our expert, Mr. Ross, and consideration for making sure the project is a success in the most expeditious time frame, the committee recommends the June initiation timeline. So bids went out for the project, are going to. Sorry, the bids were advertised. And we will go through the vendor selection process.
They had a pre-meeting, I believe, this week for any contractors that wanted to come and get information, and the bid opening is next week.
Thank you. And Bob, you spoke about the ROD grants, and Dr. Dempsey, I'm sorry, Dr. Butler discussed the district communication plans and was seeking input from all the committees, so I think everybody will touch on this in some manner. Seeking input from the committees on how board members might like to participate in providing feedback into that, the development of the communication. So with that, I'd like to move items 1 and 2 on the agenda. Can I get a second? Thank you, Pat. Any discussion?
Ms. Cooper?
Curriculum committee met, no, roll call for facilities.
Mrs. T. Grandpre?
Yes.
Ms. Gills?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes, on 2, all abstain on
Abstaining on 1, okay. Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober? Mrs. Rye?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda?
I am abstaining from numbers 1 and 2.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, Mrs. Cooper, the report of the curriculum committee.
Okay, it's on, all right. And you want to hear this, because it's a 3-hour meeting, I got to say here. The curriculum committee met on Thursday, January 19th for nearly 3 hours. Board members attending included Mr. Baker, Mrs. Frenda, Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Santoro, and me. And we were joined by Dr. Dempsey, Dr. Butler, Ms. Barna, and Dr. Edgerton. We started the meeting with Ms. Barna and Dr. Edgerton's presentation on the results of the fall 2022 Start Strong assessment that they just reviewed. I want to thank them for being here tonight and for sharing these data with the committee, the board, and the public. During our discussion, administrators emphasized that this assessment was designed as a benchmark to evaluate the needs of the students in the upcoming year and not as a replacement for local standards-based benchmark assessments like iReady results or the NJSLA summative assessments. Next, Ms. Barna discussed the district's approach to ChatGPT, the powerful chatbot introduced late last year. This AI tool can generate sophisticated responses to open-ended questions and write essays, short stories, poetry, and even computer coding. The administrative staff and English and social studies teachers at the high school have discussed the potential impact of ChatGPT on how students write essays and submit assignments. While the initial buzz surrounding ChatGPT was alarming, administrators and teachers generally have faith in their ability to monitor the authenticity of their students' writing. Regardless, Ms. Barna assured the committee that the potential use and abuse of ChatGPT will be on the radar of teachers at both the high school and the middle school. Ultimately, a policy on its use may be needed. Dr. Butler then reviewed considerations regarding the 2023-2024 calendar. She presented 3 versions and indicated that Bedminster preferred the first 2 options due to the timing of spring break in their calendar. Spring break in March was discouraged by the testing coordinator, given the likelihood that standardized tests will be administered in March, and these dates have not yet been set. The committee generally preferred the option with the start date of Wednesday, September 6th, with spring break the first week of April, but preferred to make the final decision at the February meeting. This option was preferred because it minimized the number of non-school days before students between Labor Day and the first day of school. The committee reiterated that surveying parents and families in the SHSD community regarding their preferences regarding the calendar for 2024 and 2025, particularly regarding the start date, is critical. As Heather mentioned, Dr. Butler then discussed her efforts for restarting work regarding the district's grant, which was also discussed in other committees this month. Dr. Dempsey then presented the results of her analysis of academic data in Bedwell, BMS, and high school before and after the pandemic as part of her merit goal. Dr. Dempsey analyzed academic data by race and ethnicity, socioeconomic level, special education status, and ELL status. Note that socioeconomic data from last year were not deemed reliable because they were based on data on students receiving free and reduced lunches, and that last year all students were eligible for free lunches. Clearly, the pandemic has had a negative impact on student learning. However, the New Jersey Department of Education has not recalibrated its expectations or its benchmark scores for levels of proficiency on the NJSLA. These are some of the key takeaways from her analysis. First, despite national concerns surrounding learning loss during the pandemic, higher percentages of students identified as white and Hispanic, and higher percentages of special education students passed the ELA portion of the NJSLA in spring 2022 than in spring 2019. Higher percentages of students identified as Hispanic also passed the math portion of the NJSLA in spring 2022 than in spring 2019. Despite this overall improvement, results of all formative and summative assessments, including the NJSLA, Start Strong, and iReady assessments, demonstrated lower scores in math and ELA in Hispanic and special education students, socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and English language learners. Dr. Dempsey recommended several additional monitoring and outreach efforts to address these concerns. First, she recommended sharing data on these disproportional academic patterns with the administrative team. She also recommended that disaggregated academic data are shared with the parent community through HSAs to promote a common understanding while protecting student confidentiality. Additionally, she recommended that the district ensures that ARP-funded work around tiered systems of support addresses academic disproportionality considerations, continues to meet parents to create patterns for success where academic patterns are a concern, and continues these analyses to consider the interrelationships between disproportionality and racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic subgroups specific to special education. Moving forward, she also advised the district to consider restructuring classes at the high school to ensure efficiency and efficacy of support by decoupling ELL and in-class support and reevaluating the levels of classes currently offered. She also reiterated her recommendation to consider restructuring the calendar at BMS to allow additional time for math instruction. In addition, she recommended the district reevaluate the current structure of supports for ELL students and consider an opportunity to offer bilingual classes to primary learners. Finally, she recommended charging the Director of Student Services with applying for grants to expand the district's pre-K program, developing subgroup-specific outreach mechanisms to promote ongoing communications with all subgroups, and uploading iReady results to the district student information system so that data can be fully explored for all subgroups. The committee thanked Dr. Dempsey for this important work. Members agreed that these data and recommendations will be a useful guide to all ongoing and future initiatives designed to address disproportionalities we've seen in academic achievement, attendance, and disciplinary incidents that we've reviewed over the past couple of months. So then next, Dr. Dempsey reviewed her analysis of the current status and historical success of the accelerated math program at BMS and beyond. Analysis of achievement data, including grading and NJSLA results, indicate that students who have participated in the 2-year accelerated math program have been tremendously successful in their accelerated classes. Given the performance and the numbers of students eligible, there seems to be a need to increase the number of students being accelerated, although the structure of middle school math should be reconsidered to help more on-level students also experience success. And just as a background, currently students meeting identified criteria at the end of 5th grade are invited to demonstrate sufficient mastery on the 6th grade assessment in August. If they successfully complete this assessment, they are placed into 7th grade honors math in grade 6. This necessitates independent summer study, which is not always feasible or preferred. Dr. Dempsey recommended that the district create an additional opportunity for students in grade 5 to demonstrate mastery of standards in grades 5 and 6 to create an additional pathway for acceleration. She recommended that the math supervisor propose a new course to the curriculum committee for these students in the fall of 2023, a course that could be launched in 2024. This recommendation was universally and enthusiastically supported by the committee. Finally, the new committee reviewed and approved all professional development and field trip requests. The committee was excited to learn that multiple swimmers qualified for the New Jersey Meet of Champions in Sewell, New Jersey in March. The committee fully supports their participation in the event and requested additional information for a discussion about such events in our committee meeting in February. And that concludes my report. And I'd like to move items 1 through 5 on the agenda. Do I have a second? Any discussion?
First of all, Dr. Mulder, thank you for your efforts. I guess it's mentioned in all of the reports, but your efforts on the, I guess we're still labeling branding or the communications and making initiatives, asking everybody. I think that's a great initiative and could have a lot of positive impact. Also another positive thing, thank you for Dr. Edgerton and Barna for all of the data. It's really amazing and very comprehensive in the way you present it. And another positive is that we're staying ahead of the chat GPT potential implications. So my first curriculum meeting was long, but it was insightful. So that's it.
Yeah, that's good. Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mrs. D. Grumfrey?
Yes.
Ms. Gills?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Mrs. Rye?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
And Mrs. Brenda?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now, we are moving on to the report of the Personnel Committee. Mrs. DeGround.
Yes. So policy and personnel met on the 19th at 4 p.m. for an hour and 15 minutes. All board members were in attendance, along with Dr. Butler, Ms. Mee, and Dr. Dr. Dempsey, sorry, Mr. Hoppy, Dr. Nigel, and Ms. Garofalo. In terms of personnel, we started with a discussion and update in results to the fall student sports surveys. And it was noted that there were at least 5 fall championships that came out of the fall season. There were overall very few negative comments that were returned and a bunch of positive comments as well. And both sets of comments will be shared with coaches. Overall, we did discuss how the survey responses do remain rather low. It was only around 15% of the participating students that responded to surveys. And there was lots of discussion that went on in terms of ways that we could continue to try and support students taking these surveys, because we do value that feedback. And we do use it to make changes in programs if they're needed, or to continue to support them in ways that we can. So we are continuing to discuss possible ongoing options and ways to collect more in future seasons as possible. We then went on to discuss in terms of winter sizes for those of you that may or may not have been on the committees at the time. And remember, we did have a lot of discussion surrounding winter sports last year in terms of sizes and looking for ensuring that we are maintaining student safety as well as student access to be able to participate in the sports. And they were able to tell us that at this point in time, all winter sports were told that there was a possibility of having constraints to the sizes of the teams if they needed, because they may be too big for safety. And they were did alert us to one student that when they did hear this during the initial tryout process, did redirect the sport choice for the winter. But currently there were no needs to limit anybody's access to any of the winter sports. But this will remain an ongoing focus to ensure that there is safety for the students as well as access to various sports, both at the high school and the middle school. And I believe that was it in terms of personnel. So with that, I'd like to move action items 1 through 8. Is there any discussion?
Just one quick comment. You probably have heard it before, but in case you haven't, for the surveys, I have heard children don't want to participate because they don't believe it's anonymous. They believe it's going to get back to them, and then they won't be able to play. So.
We did discuss that and look for ways to try and make it as anonymous as possible.
Kristen, I just have one question. As far as not needing to cut anybody or reduce the size of teams, that was at both BMS and BHS for the winter sports?
Yes. Okay. I believe what they did do, I can speak to BMS because I was part of it, they did limit some of the sports to 7th and 8th grade only trying out to start, and then where there was room adding in 6th graders. So that was one way that they used limitations there. But I don't think anybody was cut at high school.
Did fewer people, was there less interest in basketball this year than last year? Because that was an issue last year. Yeah.
I think there was less interest. There was also discussions about how certain students that were on teams were able to adjust based off of size between JV and varsity and freshman teams to help to even out some of the numbers based on ability.
We need a second. Ms. Gills?
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused because we discussed more than just what you covered.
We can't discuss anything in relation to personnel in public forums.
We discussed the policy.
Policy goes under the next agenda item. I'll go over the rest of that part of the meeting.
Okay, yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober? Mrs. Rye?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper? And Mrs. DeBrun?
Yes.
Oh, and Mrs. DeBrun?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, policy.
So the ongoing portion of the meeting was policies. So we had a number of policies in first reading. I'll give you very brief summaries. So first of all, P1648.11 and P1648.13. So that was the road to recovery, the road forward with COVID-19. And school employee vaccination requirements were both abolished as they were in relation to the initial return to school during the early stages of COVID pandemic, and at this point they are no longer needed. And P8330 and R8330 in terms of student records had slight revisions to align with administrative code wordings. And then there were 3 policies, so R8420.2, R84 R820.7 and R8420.10, and I'm sorry, they're regulations, not policies, which is bomb threats, lockdown procedures, and active shooters, were all related to safety measures, which are included within our local crisis plans, and they are already reviewed annually with our local emergency response services. So therefore, it was recommended that we remove those regulations because they're no longer required, and that we refer to our local crisis plans that are present within the building and the district. So those were the pieces in terms of policies in first reading. And then we also discussed a policy in relation to community relations. So there was a discussion that came up regarding the use of bathrooms, and the policy at BMS, BHS, and for the district are that there are gender-neutral bathrooms, nursing office bathrooms, and male and female bathrooms available for all students to use. By current board policy, buildings allow for any student to use a restroom or locker room based on their gender identity. That policy is policy 5756, which is in accordance with New Jersey law and statute. Discussions were also had in regards to how, if there were concerns in the bathroom, code of conduct can be implemented as well, if needed, based on the situation. And any student who has any concerning situation in any of the restrooms or locker rooms is recommended to bring the event to the attention of the building staff or administration so that it can be appropriately investigated and addressed in that fashion. So with that, I would like to move items 1 and 2 for policy, and I'm going to guess there might be some discussion.
Kristen, I really just wanted to follow up on the topic of the bathroom and locker room use at BHS and BMS to make sure that all students and parents are fully aware of the situation, because I'm not sure that everyone is. So the district policy, as Kristen stated, and this is in accordance with New Jersey law, is that transgender students may have access to not only single occupant gender-neutral bathrooms, but these students are also free to use gender-specific bathrooms and locker rooms that correspond to their gender identity. I really want to make sure that all students and parents are aware of this, because it can and may have already created very uncomfortable situations for students who are unaware of this policy. And the last thing, I want, and I'm sure that this board wants, is for any child to be left feeling uncomfortable while in school. So I think it's really important that all students and parents are aware that this could occur.
May I speak now? Thanks. Allowing all students full access to the boys and girls bathrooms, we must do because it's law, New Jersey law. But how many of our citizen stakeholders are aware of this literal open door policy? I'll wager only a few, until, like me, this parent, their child comes home from school and reports the incident. Public confidence is fragile. This body breaks those tenuous bounds of trust when citizen stakeholders suspect that we conduct the school's business in anything shy of a fully transparent manner. And transparency extends beyond mere compliance with the state's open meeting laws. That is the floor, that is the baseline. What blatant hypocrisy to demand more than the minimum required effort from our teachers and students than we ask of ourselves. Our citizen stakeholders have neither the time nor the patience to engage in lengthy scavenger hunts to discover information on the policies or the curriculum we implement, especially on sensitive topics. We must leverage all available technologies and even a few old-fashioned methods to keep the public informed. Open and transparent decision-making process prevent distrust and unexpected surprises, and I characterize the circumstances my colleague just described as an unexpected surprise on more than one level. When the public is kept informed, they are included and considered in our decisions, even those in which we as a board may have no say or no choice. It creates a healthy relationship between the people we serve and us. We must do better. When we don't, myself and others will continue to call it out. Thank you.
I would just like to comment on the transparency component of this, because certainly understand that you weren't aware of the policy, but I don't think that equates to the Board of Education not being transparent about something. That policy was passed in 2019, which means it went through a first reading and a second reading. It was at least reported out on in both, or at least in the first committee meeting. So I certainly understand that not everybody comes to meetings, they don't read policy online. And I understand that, and I appreciate and hear what you're saying about communication. It's vital and important. Equating that to a lack of transparency, to me, that's not what anybody was trying to do. Nobody hid the policy. We passed it in 2019. It's come up recently based on parent communication. It has been addressed. That parent communication has been addressed by our administration. It's now being brought up by board members. No lack of transparency here. Just want to make sure that we're clear about that.
Okay, I just can't agree with that, because you know that this is a sensitive topic for many people. And as a board, you had no choice but to implement that policy. That should be sent to each parent, each stakeholder, not even parents, everybody in the community should know that that was passed. This isn't just we approved the new book. This is a very sensitive topic, and people aren't coming to meetings, people aren't watching meetings, people aren't on the websites scrolling through policies. When you know that this might be a controversial or touchy subject, you should have more outreach with we should have more outreach with the community. And that way we can tell our kids, hey, you're in the bathroom, you may encounter a transgendered student. This is how you act with respect. You don't just surprise students, because then they may not react the way we think they should. So you prepare your children to react in a respectful manner. But if you don't know the policy exists and your kid goes to school and gets surprised, I mean, I would hope my child reacts correctly. But I would prefer that I give my kids a heads up that this is going on in school and you treat children with respect. Just be prepared. Especially as a female, if my daughter, who is very sensitive, encounters a transgendered student who is still appearing as a male, she's going to be rattled. So now I know to give her a heads up so that she's not shaken at the moment. Girls are my experience is with my girls at this age, they're very sensitive to their body, how they're changing, not wanting people to know certain things that are occurring in their bodies. And then all of a sudden, a transgendered student who appears male but is female comes into the bathroom. I would like to give them at least, like, maybe it's silly, but I role play with them about something that they now know. And if I wasn't on this board, I would not have known about this. And it's just a way to teach my children, this is how you treat others with respect, even when you're shaken for a second. That's all. This is a policy that should, even now, I know it was passed in 2019, but it's never too late to inform the public.
So the question I would have is we can't go back in time, but moving forward, we can, when there's a policy, we do share it. We can't go back in time and share every single policy that we think might be important to every single person coming in. There is a responsibility on the public to be informed and find that information for themselves, because otherwise parents already sometimes feel like they're getting too many emails from the school, and you're going to get a really thick policy. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to fix the problem that you're asking.
I think it's so simple. You
Because
send it-
not every policy, and if we talked about this earlier, what's sensitive to you isn't necessarily sensitive to me. So there's no way to articulate all the specific policies that every single person's going to want to know. Some of the responsibility comes to the parent, has to sit there and read some of the stuff, the things that they might need to be informed about.
I think some of the subjects that the policies cover, we all can agree, are new to us, are controversial, but I mean, they're just so easy to pick out.
But with all due respect, this isn't a new policy. This policy was passed in 2019.
Right, and I've been here since
2015 originally.
Thank you.
2015 originally. So, and I just think I think this board is put into a very precarious position when we start picking and choosing policy that we think may be important to the public, because what's important to you, and I understand that this is important to you, and it's important to the parent that reached out. And you know what? We're addressing it with that parent. We're addressing it as a board now, because you're a board member and you brought it up. But we will be in a very precarious position if we pick a policy that's important to some people and then we miss one that's important to other people. I'm not sure how we do that, and I fully agree. I don't know how we look back now and say, this is a policy that was a hot topic back in 2015, right?
Right, I saw it, I understand it, but you're talking about children in bathrooms when they're in a vulnerable state.
Lisa, to that point, sorry to jump in there, so to that point, maybe this question is for you. You can't go back in time, but maybe I could look at the archives and see if there was dialogue or discussion or attorney, advice or what have you. But for the public's edification, I know we spoke about this. Is there added risk or legal exposure to these type of policies coming into play, just being that they've kind of never been in place before, from a board standpoint, from a district standpoint?
I'm not sure I understand the question. The policy's been in existence for quite some time. So what?
Right. Well,
Legal risk in terms of what?
Historically speaking, I get this is relatively new to a lot of people, right? I know the answer. For the public's edification, is there added risk of lawsuit or exposure to the district with these type of policies being in place, or just coming to surface now? What happened?
I just want to make sure I have the right question. Is there added risk for the board to actually follow the policy?
No, to get sued. To get sued for whatever reason or whatever,
So, like I say to you all the time, anybody can get sued at any time for any reason, pretty much. The question then is there any liability and what's the defense? So, the New Jersey law against discrimination exists. That's part of the reason why there is this policy, that it also exists. So the board is insulated from liability as long as it's following its policy. If it doesn't follow the policy, then there's exposure. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, and yes, and I did know that. I think it's important for the public to hear that side too, because I think, again, from a public standpoint, there's probably a great misconception in terms of what is mandated, what's regulation, what's law. We get these updates, and we always have questions, but it's important for everybody to understand what for, but also the power of what we do here. I often question the power of our vote when we have so many mandates coming down the pipe, right? I'm sure I'm not the only one in the district that has those questions, but again, a lot of people understand that we vote to the mandated items and things like that. So we're supposed to vote yes, but we can vote no, right? So I think that conversation is probably the biggest one to have in public, is the actual process of the thing and how it impacts all of this dialogue.
Right, so it's my understanding that board policy, well, it's not my understanding, I've looked for them myself. Board policies are on the district website. They're under the board tab. Click down and it says board policies, and they're searchable by topic, or it's searchable by table of contents. It's a really easy way of finding it. And if I am not mistaken, if a board policy is mandated, it'll have an M on it.
Yes, and I want to be clear that that was not always the case. We hear a lot about the word transparency. Those policies were posted purposefully to ensure that the community had easy access to the policies that had been passed by the board. In terms of my responsibility and the administration's responsibility, to the best of my knowledge, we are following the transgender student policy the way it is written and intended. So I just want to be very clear on that.
So just to the point, though, about ensuring that the public is aware of policies that may concern them, that they may want to educate their children on, I think it would be great if actually we could give back to the policy committee this topic for them to actually have a dialogue around what might be useful to make sure, or what might be useful for the public to see and understand and have put forth to them. I understand that what is important to some might not be important to others, but I think starting to have that dialogue is a good one. It never hurts to give people information, and whether it concerns them or not, then they don't have to read it, but at least we provide it to them. So that would be my recommendation.
Ms. Can I add one more thing? The other piece of information that's very helpful when it comes to board policies, when you take a look at them, they're organized in such a way that there is a section that's just for pupils. There's a section that's for teaching staff members. There's a section that's for support staff members. There's a section for board bylaws. There's a section for operations. So they're all categorized, so you'll find anything that affects pupils will be all clustered together. So that's another way of looking at it.
And I think that's helpful, but I think we also need to remember that not everyone is as well versed in terms of the policies, the topics.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
And I know you're not. I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying to the board that, we may say it's out there, but if people don't even think to look for it or how to look for it, it might be helpful if we're more proactive in providing some of this.
And I think the board puts things in the Friday folders now, so that could be something to be considered.
Yes, absolutely. I just also wanted to add that to this end, in terms of, the very fragile word of transparency and what it actually means, I just want to, in terms of it going back to policy and surrounding this conversation regarding what's important to one versus what's important to another, if we are going to review policy and take into consideration which policies should be shared more comprehensively, I guess, for lack of a better word, then that requires a full policy audit. And we would need to go through every policy and not just arbitrarily as a board decide that we think this one may be either a hot button topic or an issue of controversy. I do not think that that is something to be left to the judgment of 10 members of this district. I think that we would need to do something very comprehensive to review all of those policies and find a method by which to determine if we could even really do that with fidelity and equity. So that's where I stand on that. I am all in favor always of communication, and so that's great in getting people information by whatever mechanisms we have available to us. I just really caution about us being the arbiters of what is going to be important to the public at large and what is deemed sensitive. And again, I know that the point is being made that this is obvious, but perhaps to some people this is necessary, and thank goodness, and they don't want it debated. I'm just saying the way we have to, in this role, we have to take ourselves out of the lens personally that we view things through and understand that we're making decisions for everyone, and just make sure that we always do that comprehensively and with fidelity.
Can I just add one thing? Because I feel like the discussion, and correct me if I'm wrong, the discussion today has mostly been about school policy, but this is beyond school policy. This is the New Jersey law against discrimination. So parents shouldn't just be preparing children for facing this at school, but in any public place in the state of New Jersey. So this is a beyond school issue. I also want to just say, and I'm sure everyone can join me in saying that I hope all of our students feel comfortable in the bathrooms. And if they don't, for any reason, they should let someone know. But our bathrooms are for everyone. We support our transgender students as well.
foundational learning years are going to translate into the world. And this is an example that is very real for kids across the board in the state of New Jersey. So I really appreciate that nuance to this discussion. And Sam, I wholeheartedly agree, because I certainly do not want to be in a place where I am picking and choosing what is important to people, because certainly everybody holds values very differently, and I respect that, and we're here to look at all of that. So something like this would be a huge undertaking, not that we can't discuss it. I think the right place is to put it back into policy, but recognizing that would be a huge undertaking, and the board should consider, where that falls in what we have to get done. So.
Well, instead of being incredibly comprehensive, sometimes we could just say, here's a highlight. Look under pupils. It talks about attendance. It talks about dress code. It talks about blah, blah, and a link, and then people can go read it. So that way it's a combination. Yes.
It could be included as part of the weekly update on what is coming through policy at a given time.
I don't even understand why we would do an audit then if we can't even agree on what is a sensitive topic that parents and the residents of this town should know. And I know we talk about how you go on the computer and you click on policies. Probably, I think 30% of our students are Hispanic. They live the lives that I lived growing up, where my parents worked to survive, and there was no extra time. And you cannot possibly expect these people who are working to survive to click on that and start reading policies. I can guarantee you they have no clue that there are bathrooms available for every student. And to be clear, I support that. But I also support letting parents know so they can let their children know and educate them on how to respond if they find themselves in that situation. But please don't say it's on the website. I understand that. But a good portion of our student population do not have the parents who have the time to do that. They're barely making rent. They're barely making their food bills. They are not concerned with looking at policies. They're concerned with surviving. And that's when we all know, let's not pretend. This is a touchy subject. You're in the bathroom. Well, I know my girls, it would be touchy for them. But then it wouldn't hurt to send it out. Yeah, so I don't see the reason to do a policy audit, but I mean, I would want.
Well, the reason to do a policy audit is if you're suggesting that we need to be comprehensive in the sharing of this policy, then we need to review and make sure we're being comprehensive in the sharing of every policy. That would be the reason for doing an audit.
But we don't even agree on this.
Well, that's part of being a board of 10 members and trying to get to consensus. That's the whole point of the process.
So it's a huge undertaking, and I guess half the board or more doesn't think that this is an important issue to inform parents of. But you know what? Hopefully parents now know. And they can talk to their kids so their kids aren't surprised and they react in a respectful manner.
I just would like to address one more thing in terms of parents speaking to their children, and I apologize for interrupting at the end because Dr. Butler just did make a point of referencing that this is New Jersey state law and applies to all public areas, and I think that this actually speaks to the fact that these conversations this education is happening in schools, and that I think that maybe as parents, then we need to be proactive in the fact that this is not a new issue. It may be new to some, but this is certainly not a new issue. And the law, I think the initial law goes back to 2000, way before we adopted a policy in 2006. So I think that, yes, it is incumbent upon us as parents to be aware of where we are in society, the things that our students need to know, the things that our children need to know, and that we should be actively having that conversation with them. But as board members, to make determinations over which policies are going to be sensitive to all, yes, then I think that is a full policy audit, and to make sure that you do that comprehensively. And yes, maybe we may not agree, and we may not get to a place. But like Dr. Dempsey said, there are other ways to do that in the Friday folder. Every month, when we are moving things from first reading to second reading, or second reading, we certainly can put the updates as they appear in the alerts that we get, so that it is available to the entire community, and that can actually be translated to Spanish. But additionally, a lot of our Spanish-speaking families are not literate in their first language, so we're talking about a very multi-tiered problem that requires a great deal of effort to solve. But that is just the point. This goes well beyond what's happening in schools. This goes on with what's happening in all of New Jersey, and who we are, and who comprises society. So.
I totally get it, but most of their time is spent in school. So it's a good base to teach them how to accept and respect students who may be different from them. In all regards.
I'd just like to say that is an important part of our health standards curriculum, and that's an important health standard in our part of our new curriculum. And I think that's the value of public education, is to provide a base understanding of these really important issues.
Okay, so you bring up the health curriculum. Last I heard in August, it wasn't finalized. There were changes to be made. That's on tape in the August meeting. So I don't know if those changes were made or... Right.
Curriculum document, again, in the spirit of transparency, all of our curriculum is available on the website. Anybody can look at it for all times.
And the other thing I would add too is we're teaching character curriculum as well as students in every building. This would be part of that character curriculum too. So treating them with respect and kindness and openness to any type of diversity they may see in the world, beyond their own personal beliefs, their own personal identity, and their own family identity. So that we're teaching that, we're bringing it to the attention of the students. The parents know that that's part of the curriculum. Parents are dealing with this in their own workplaces as well, for the most part, depending on how small of a workplace you have. But most people are dealing with it there as well and having that same exposure. So it's something we do need to deal with as a society.
All right. I mean, no one seems to think that this is important enough to send a letter home to parents. So as the teachers are teaching the kids how to be respectful, that's also my role as a parent, more so than the teachers. But fine, teachers are doing it, but at the end of the day, the responsibility lies with the parents. And if they do not know certain things are occurring at school, they may not address it. They may not think their child is at that stage. Now I know, and when I go home, I will speak to my children so they know what to expect and how to react respectfully and properly, just like they would want to be treated.
I also think you can't make an assumption that parents aren't speaking to their children about respect just because the school isn't sending out a letter on a given topic.
But this is like a surprise. Like, I mean, if I were 13 and I was in a bathroom and I'm very sensitive about the changes in my body, and I see what I perceive as a male walk in, I'm going to be surprised, even though that child is a she. So, I mean, there's just no harm in doing it, but we're not going to do it. There's no harm in doing it, but maybe it'll fall on individual board members to keep the public informed on what they think are important topics. Maybe that's what we need to do then.
And I just, as the discussion I think has circled back a couple of times, I think at this point that we would have to move this back into policy to have a more in-depth conversation. And in the interest of moving the meeting along, I think unless there's anything else to discuss regarding policy, I think we need to do roll call.
Toro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Mrs. Rye?
Yes.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. DeGraffere?
Yes.
Ms. Gills?
Yes.
Mrs. Brenda?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you all for your patience. We are now going to enter our second session of public comments. Public comments are welcome at this time on any topic. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address. We thank you for your input. And as a reminder, always, let's please be respectful to one another. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Young. I'm an educator within the Somerset Hills School District. I'm aware that we're in the middle of negotiations and are currently at an impasse. I come here tonight to discuss how not having a contract has personally affected me. For those who don't know, I'm a 3-time graduate of the College of New Jersey, most recently obtaining my second master's degree this past summer. My wife, also a teacher, graduated from TCNJ as well. She too has a master's degree. One would think that with a combined 5 degrees, the two of us would be able to live comfortably. That's not the case. Due to the lack of a settlement, our older contracts are not overly reflective of the economic state of where we live. I already had to work a second job on the weekends. Now I need to work more hours in order to make ends meet. I lose 3 nights a week to work this second job. I'm losing precious time with my family in order to support my family. I am both physically and mentally exhausted because of the situation I am placed in. I love teaching. It is the best job in the world. I love coming to this building every day and working with my students every single day. But enough is enough. I ask the Board of Ed to please reach a fair and respectful settlement for the sake of the extraordinary teachers who work here. Thank you.
Good evening, Lori Opp, Chestnut Ave. I appreciate the work you all do. My husband Tom served on a Board of Education for many years, so I know it's a thankless role. Nonetheless, it's a role that you accepted in order to make a difference in our community. I'm here tonight to make 2 specific points, and it is my hope that you listen with intent and you turn into action a fair and respectful contract for our teachers. Not so long ago, you were all calling the teachers and staff heroes as we returned to schools following the pandemic. While you all sat in the safety and comfort of your homes, not even venturing out for board meetings, we were in front of classrooms full of children, not only educating them, but reassuring them that we would keep them safe, and we did. Those same teachers continue to do so today, but without a contract. Hero to zero, apparently. In a time when everyone in this room is being hit with higher costs, I am disappointed to learn that our taxpayer dollars are not being spent wisely. The fact that negotiations are at an impasse and a state mediator had to be brought in is an unnecessary expense. Neither side wins when a mediator is involved, and it is disappointing that it has reached this point. At the last board meeting, you approved an interim superintendent with a price tag of $700 per day. An expensive decision that was expedited and did not require a state mediator. I'm not sure why you couldn't have moved Dr. Butler into that temporary role, as she is more than qualified. Finally, as we move forward, we must collectively commit to providing our educators with the contract they so deserve, so that they can continue their important work of serving their students. Thank you.
Madalena Villalobos again. Some of the things that I was going to say have already been said, so therefore, just a couple more points that I wanted to make about what our contracted duties are as teachers, secretaries, custodians, maintenance, guidance, nursing, and other teaching staffs. And that every member goes above and beyond those contracted duties. For example, extra help after school, writing letters of recommendations, making up or clarifying things after school. These are not part of our contracts, but yet all teachers have been doing that. Paraprofessionals continue to guide and nurture their assigned students, and yet many of them have been working, for those who have been here long term, have been working with 10% less of their pay for the last 12 years. And they've never recuperated that. That was along with the custodial staff also. Secretarial staff that goes way above and beyond all their duties. Kids come in every day to maintenance and custodial staff that have cleaned up buildings and provided a great place to live, to be in, to work in. And I just am wondering why this board, who expects so much from all their staff, has taken 7 months to even reach a decision. It is time that when there are shortage of teachers, shortage of subs, shortage of people who feel that working in any school district, let alone Somerset Hill, is not worth the pay nor the responsibility. It's so sad and shameful to feel that all we do day in and day out, above and beyond, doesn't seem to be worth it at all for this board. It's time to settle.
Good evening. My name is Archie Bernowski, a junior here at Bernards High School. I come to support the staff and faculty for the need of their fair contracts. The lack of contracts not only affects the staff and faculty, but the entire student body in the Somerset Hills School District, in and outside of the classroom. As a son of a kindergarten teacher and an elementary school principal, I know how important these contracts are to the staff, faculty, and most importantly, their families. Mr. Baker and the rest of the Board of Education need to settle fair contracts now. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Charles Ganella, a student athlete here at Bernards High School, and I'm here to side with the wonderful teachers and staff of Bernards High School and the entire school district. First, I would like to talk about the lights and turf issues of our field. I have started the past 2 seasons on the football team and look forward at our quest at a 4th straight division title run. We have all of our offensive plays on our wrist when we play, and we can't even read them half the time because our lights are so terrible. And it's a complete competitive disadvantage for us as we run a no-huddle offense and the pace of the game is completely dismantled. Next, I would like to give you a look at the student struggle at the moment with you guys not having an agreement on a refined contract. Imagine a kid gets sick with mono and has to make up a bunch of work and cannot come after school or during lunch for help. You have 12 missed math homeworks, missed a whole essay in English, and missed an entire war's worth of instruction in history class. But you cannot make up the test after school or during lunch. You're going to make the kid miss more class time so he can make up a test and fall even more behind. The struggle is evident for the student, but imagine having to get your body back in shape for basketball season during your attempt to make up all this work. Seems pretty tough, right? Also, it's pretty hard to give an answer to your mother when she is going after you about your grades and she's telling you to go for extra help and you can't. So, thank you. Pay the teachers.
My name is Scarlett Campbell, and I'm a senior. I would like to publicly read my article that I published in the VHS Crimson regarding the national teacher crisis from the perspective of a student. Our teachers are our role models. We've looked up to them and learned from them since we were in kindergarten, where they nurtured and encouraged us, even when it seemed as if our emotions felt too big for us to handle. In middle school, our teachers invited us to eat lunch with them when we felt overwhelmed by what was going on in our personal lives. In high school, they've helped us find our true passions, and they continue to guide us on how to be the best versions of ourselves. Teaching, arguably, is one of the most important professions that exists in the world today. Teachers, in partnership with our parents, are responsible for the future of the nation's youth. But unfortunately, there is a devastating shortage of teachers practicing this profession due to incredibly high stress levels and low wages. The National Education Association reported this shortage to be over 300,000 teachers across the United States from the beginning of the 2022 to 23 school year. This crisis extends beyond the individual teachers themselves and their own lives and has an impact on the entire future of the country. Despite the substantial increase in the general cost of living in the United States, medical fees, pension costs, and the overall price of goods, many teachers' take-home pays has not budged. Specifically, medical costs are increasing dramatically, which makes it so that teachers who have worked longer end up losing more money each year due to increased salary-dependent contributions. One can only imagine how discouraging it must be to put all of your effort into any profession just to see salary diminish because of these medical costs as an individual's skill set grows. Teaching is the only profession where employees are not rewarded for their individual skill set and dedication, when in fact this is the one profession where it is these individual efforts that matter the most. This is devastating, not only because of how highly we as students value the teachers and staff in our schools, but also it is showing us how these adults, whom we see as role models, are not being appreciated for all their hard work. It reflects the misconstrued conception that teachers aren't as valuable as they truly are. This narrative has become increasingly relevant as the teacher contract negotiations have begun affecting students firsthand. The fact that teachers have to involve themselves with these negotiations for an increase in their salary every 3 years proves how their profession is underappreciated, as it is essentially the only field where employees have to fight for increase in compensation. In fact, 2 paraprofessionals, essential members of a public school's faculty, left SHSD to work at neighboring Basking Ridge for just $10 more an hour. There is far too much hesitation in prioritizing the well-being and retention of our teachers. Action should be taken to ensure that we do not continue to lose essential members of our community. Teacher unions are designed to...
I am so sorry that I have to interrupt you in this moment. That was the free...
I'll give her my 3 minutes.
Were you going to speak next?
I was.
Okay.
Thank you.
Teacher unions are designed to protect teachers from this very situation by ensuring fair labor practices and compensation for services. Newly elected SHSD Board of Education President Sam Freda stated, "The details of negotiations with any union are confidential, as is agreed upon in the ground rules signed by the board's negotiations committee and the union's negotiations committee at the beginning of the collective bargaining process." While we do not know the extent of the items that the union or the Board of Education are asking for, the current delay in agreeing to a new contract is perceived by students as a contributing factor to the prevailing narrative that a teacher's profession is increasingly unappealing and underappreciated. When students are applying to colleges and planning their futures, many say that based upon the unfair reality and disrespectful way that the teachers are being treated by society as a whole, it is very discouraging to become a teacher. This is a huge problem because without teachers, future generations will be lost. In the Somerset Hills School District, teachers are known for going above and beyond, which is why our school system is as great as it is and why we have been considered a top-rated school in New Jersey. Teachers spend extra hours volunteering to run unpaid clubs, providing students extra help, and writing recommendation letters, all of which are not compensated for. As a society, why are we so accustomed to expecting extra from our teachers? To use an example from another profession, if I had a meeting with a lawyer for an hour and it bled into 2 hours, I would pay my lawyer for 2 hours, as it is not acceptable to ask for free labor. The fact that this differs in the education system further proves that teachers are taken advantage of in comparison to other professions. All teachers should be rewarded for their efforts and paid appropriately. Even through the chaos of COVID-19, our teachers continue the theme of going above and beyond, reconstructing their lesson plans, adapting to virtual learning, and continuing to provide the emotional and educational support we as students so desperately needed. As a student, I can confidently say that I have never been disappointed by my teachers, as they gave so much to all of us during that time and moving forward. During this time, we are looking at our teachers in admiration as they show us the importance of standing up for ourselves, particularly in the workplace where it is most important to do so. It is heartbreaking to witness teachers across the country treated with such disrespect, as if everything they do and have done for us is not valued by the community and society as a whole. As many of our accomplishments thus far can be attributed to how they helped us. If we expect younger generations to want to become educators, we need to set an example that the profession is valued and respected in our community. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Audrey Panic, and I am a senior at Bernards High School. Unfortunately, because of the board's recent inability to settle for a fair contract, many of the clubs once available at the high school have been tabled. One of these clubs, known as the GSA, or the Gay Straight Alliance Club, run by Mr. Pear, is no longer in motion. This club provided students with a safe space outside of the classroom, welcoming all, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation. Another important club that has been placed on hold is the Girl Up Club, run by Ms. Petrolongo. Girl Up is a female empowerment partnership with the United Nations that offered opportunities for empowerment, advocacy, and fundraising to students of all genders. Both of these clubs provided safe spaces for students from all backgrounds, allowing for mature, collaborative discussions on topics important to many students, such as gender-based violence, LGBTQ+ rights, and equality in STEM, sports, and the workforce. It is not only incredibly important that these clubs run and are offered to students, but that the teachers giving their time to these organizations are recognized for their hard work, dedication, and true care for the club and students involved. With that, I ask you to please settle a fair contract now for the teachers and the students. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Denicola, and I am a junior at BHS and a proud member of both clubs mentioned, GSA and Girl Up. Throughout my high school career, I have participated in multiple extracurriculars and have always been amazed at the myriad of opportunities given by the devoted teachers in our school. Last year, I attended Harvard Model Congress and had the most interesting and best time learning beyond just what is offered in the classroom. One thing that is going to be different this year is that teachers such as Dr. Hogg and Mrs. P, or Petrolongo, will be unable to attend because of the board's inability to settle a fair contract. Remembering last year, I can remember how much those extra teachers offered to the students and to the staff to support us in simple organization. We are a lot of students getting us everywhere, helping us prepare, and just helping us have a great time. Another, on a smaller level, outside of a big field trip, is mentioned by other students, is the extra help for tests. Doc Ferrara, who teaches AP Physics, has for many years offered test prep for tests, as AP Physics is a pretty difficult course, and a lot of the students are usually interested in an extra help. And as one of those students, I have attended a few of those meetings, and I can tell that I would say roughly 95% of all students in AP Physics would attend those extra help, which were about an hour after school, where he would just give us extra help, which we all desperately needed. Our last test was when the contracts were unable to be resolved, and we had to do it by ourselves. And I will say, some students tried to get together, we tried to work through it, but just really is not the same as having the teacher there. And he did the best he could. He offered us help in school, but it's simply not the same. And I understand that now that that's missing, we can fully appreciate just what the teachers have done for us and just the amount of extra work that they have put into just to try to get us to have grades and feel comfortable in their class. So I just ask, please, just settle it, because we need it. Students need it, teachers need it, helps everyone. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Carrie Stanek, I'm a paraprofessional over at Bedwell Elementary School. And I live in Far Hills, New Jersey, in case I'm supposed to do that. Just before I actually say what I wanted to say, with no disrespect at all, I was in business for like 20 years prior to doing the para gig. And when you're trying to negotiate a contract, and going around in circles like you did with that whole bathroom thing really doesn't give a sense of confidence to those that are really begging for you to settle a contract. So, that appearance is really something that you want to have. Probably should have tabled it a little earlier. That's just from my business perspective. First, I'd like to say, appreciate Dr. Dempsey and everything she's done for the school. Thank you, and good luck in your future. I really enjoyed the words Mrs. Frieda said. That was really good. How she put so much emphasis on the dedication, doing what's best for the children, and touching the children, and being there for the children. And I know you guys are really busy, so you don't really get to do a lot of really interacting with the children. But I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of people that I know, that I've worked with over the years, and actually who helped my children get to where they are. These are the people that every day they come in and they actually make a difference with a child in front of them every day, okay? That's what's the difference, okay? That's what's best for the children. These people are what's best for the children. These people are what's best for my children. They also have children that came here to tell you that this is the best thing for the children, okay? We have to do that. We went through a lot with the pandemic, okay? I spoke last time, and one of my students, a student came up to me and said, Mr. S, I heard you talking yesterday at the board meeting. And I'm like, wow. And yeah, my mom called me over and said, it's Mr. S. That's what they call me. And she said, oh, they're not paying you guys enough money? And I didn't really say anything. And he looked up at me with a furrowed brow and said, that's not fair. And if a child in 3rd grade knows the impact of teachers and knows the difference of what's fair and what's not fair, while everybody else wants to sit there and say, what's your gender pronoun before you want to pay the teachers, that's a problem, okay? And we need to settle a contract. We need to take care of these people, let them go back to their children, okay? Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
My name is Sophia Seelig, and I'm a proud educator of this district. Before I begin, I'd like to say advocacy is powerful. So to my 2 beautiful daughters at home, and to my students past and present, this is for you. May you always find your voices and speak up for yourselves, others, and the things you value. Members of the board, Drs. Dempsey and Butler, students, parents, and community members, see and hear us tonight. Teaching has become monumentally difficult. I'm sorry, I'm really nervous. If I had known 20 years ago the expectations and workload that would be put on me as a teacher today, I am certain I would have chosen a different career path. In my ignorance, I thought a career in education would mean teaching children math, reading, and writing. Little did I know that in signing on to be a teacher, I had also agreed to be a coach, a cheerleader, a therapist, a ringmaster, a mentor, a janitor, a detective, a behavioralist, a drill sergeant, and an entertainer. As disillusioned as I was early on, time and experience afforded me the opportunity to understand what it meant to be a teacher. That is until the pandemic struck. Who could forget the panic, fear, and worry that COVID instilled in us early on. Months later, the dust settled and we were ready to reopen partially. While many worked from home, we didn't really have that option as educators. We had to show up in person. And so we came to school every day and taught our children on Zoom, behind computer screens, with masks, without masks, through plexiglass partitions. We showed up when we needed to and had to for our students. We didn't show up for our sake, because for our sake, we were terrified and we wanted to work from home too. But we showed up for your children, our children, and it mattered most. And we all got through it, but not without our own scars. With the pandemic behind us, you would think educators would feel a sense of relief, returning to a somewhat normal school year. But the truth is, the scars are still there, and we are exhausted now more than ever. Our plates run us over and over, time and time again. We are repeatedly asked to do more with less. Wear more hats, but with less time, less resources, less support, less compensation, less staff. I guess you can add substitute to the many hats we wear. Exceptional people are leaving teaching because they're burnt out. And let me tell you, teacher burnout is real. I experienced it a year ago. Every morning for about a month, I laid in bed contemplating whether or not I could get up and do this another day. The stress, the political attacks, the workload, the insinuations that I wasn't doing enough or didn't care enough, the staff shortages, they all came together in a perfect storm for me. I share this with you not for sympathy, but to offer you some insight into what it's really like to be in the trenches of education today. I have more to say, but I thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Melissa Leonard, and I'm a teacher at Bedwell and a resident of 60 Liberty Road in Berners Hill. I started teaching at Bedwell about 20 years ago, and I teach at Richmond. I also taught kindergarten, 4th grade, and started Bedwell career in 3rd grade along with Dr. Dempsey. You all the best, and thank you for all your hard work. As an educator and parent in the district, I'm here to ask that we please work towards reaching a fair contract settlement. In thinking about what I wanted to say this evening, I went back into my notes for when I last spoke about this at a Board of Education meeting 4 years ago in the spring of 2019, since we were also working without a contract then, as well as many of the years that I've worked in this school district. I thought about how many of the things I said 4 years ago could be restated again. I could restate that our unique group of dedicated, hardworking staff members consistently go above and beyond their contract each day, volunteering for school events, giving students extra help, writing letters of recommendation. I could restate our staff's passion and commitment to education, whether it's our teachers, the paras, the custodians. Every person in this district holds such a strong dedication to our schools and the children who attend. I could restate how our educators come up with such innovative lessons and how they are some of the most creative and compassionate people I've met. But then I also thought about what has changed in the last 4 years since we were working without a contract. I thought about COVID, how our teachers stayed up late at night digitizing lessons and navigating new technology for virtual instruction, how we worked through changes in safety precautions, learned to teach in masks and plexiglass and reinvent classroom lessons, how as exhausted as we were, we continued to be strong, positive educators for our students. I thought about this time post-pandemic. I thought about the teacher and staff shortages, subbing to cover classes and preps, educators working tirelessly to address learning loss and achievement gaps, how we help students through post-pandemic social emotional issues and severe anxiety, teaching children how to resolve conflict in social situations they were unaccustomed to for so long. Yet our staff did so without thinking because they are such a passionate, dedicated set of individuals. I thought about how 4 years ago I talked about being a resident of the town and that my daughter was about to enter kindergarten. In the blink of an eye, I now have a 1st grader and a 3rd grader at Bedwell. 4 years later, I can truly speak as a parent and educator about the unbelievable impact the teachers and staff have had on my family. That despite the ups and downs, my children were happy and learning and cared for due to our passionate educators. Throughout all of this, I thought, our children deserve educators who feel respected and cared for in their community. I feel fully invested in our schools and our children, as I know all of you do who serve on the Board of Education, and I believe it is imperative that we reach a fair settlement now. Thank you.
Hi, Emma Davis. I'm a 1st grade teacher at Bedwell. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I got inspired by my 1st graders, as I often do. At morning meeting every day, we set a daily intention in our class as a way to better ourselves and be better classmates to each other and be better citizens of the world. And I'm standing up here because I wanted to share some of the cards because I feel like they're very appropriate to what we're going through right now. The first one that inspired me was that today I will stand up and speak up for what my needs. And I'm up here to speak up because we need a fair and respectful contract. Another one that I wanted to bring up was one that came up kind of during when we were talking about social studies and community helpers. It's especially true as an intention for that week because it says, today I will consider a potential career that I could have in my community. I was proud to say, I'm a proud educator and I'm a proud part of this community. I'm a professional and I'm surrounded by tons of dedicated, hardworking colleagues. SHJ to SD is a special place with the most amazing students and teachers. As teachers, we deserve to be treated like professionals who are respected. There are so many of these cards, and so many of them stood out to me because a lot of them talk about how we can help our community. And one of the first ones, I won't go through all of them because there's a ton of them, but one of them says, today I will think about how my work now can help my community later. And obviously, as a first grade teacher, I feel like, this is something that I'm gonna see. These amazing students who are high school students, it's like my kids that I'm teaching right now are gonna be doing this amazing speaking down the road. And hopefully, it won't be about the same thing. All of these talk about how we contribute to our community, and they're not necessarily for just teachers, but like we talk about what are we doing that helps our community. We're doing so much for our community every day through our students. We have a highly educated staff that stops at nothing to help their students. We are constantly going the extra mile for our kids and for each other. I mean, everyone has talked about COVID and how hard we worked. You can just walk down the hallways of Bedwell and you can see how hard we work. We're constantly doing extra things to show up for our kids, like extra story nights and holiday shops. There are coaches, there are people who are running clubs, and it's just not fair that we're not being treated with that respect of getting a fair and respectful contract. The last card that I wanted to share with you was just that today I will act in ways that make myself proud. And we talk about that and how we can make ourselves proud. And I just want to bring that up to you guys because I really hope that you can feel proud with your decision because we need a fair contract and we really deserve it. Do what's right for the family.
Hello, Janice O'Brien, teacher at Barnes High School. I was not planning to speak tonight, but I watched several of our students get up and speak, and I am compelled because I'm so proud of them and honored. I've been teaching at least 25 years. When I started, honest to God, at 22 years old, my biggest worry walking into a classroom of a bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds was, will I know more than them? I quickly learned I knew way more than they did, but that is the least of my worries and the worries of any of the staff in this room. We have been trained in CPR, trauma-based instruction, administering Narcan if there's an overdose, and endless lockdown drills. In the past few days, there have been 3 mass shootings, and we stand before you today without a contract. If that is expected of us, I don't understand it at all. Since I've been here, I've gone through 3 negotiation processes, and each time there is more and more impact on the morale of this staff. I love this job. When my kids ask me, and I get asked every year, Mrs. O'Brien, do you like your job? I say no. I love it. I laugh every day with these students. I share myself. They share themselves with me. I impart so much more than the English language on these kids. There is no greater profession, and it saddens me that I'm questioning it. COVID-19 was hard. My entire profession changed in a weekend. I implore you, please settle this contract. You have an amazing staff here. I really hope you appreciate how much you do. Settle this contract because good people are gonna leave. And there's a teacher shortage, and you're not gonna find better than what you have already. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Oh, please go ahead. Let me know when I...
Hi, Holly Emery, 31 Lucas Drive, Burnsville. First and foremost, congratulations to Pat and Bob for their re-entry, I guess, back into the board, and congratulations to you, Sylvia. And thank you, Dr. Dempsey, for all your years of service, and you will be missed. I'm up here for two reasons. The first one, thank you guys for bringing up the discussion on the bathrooms. I had a totally different, I guess, speech prepared, but after being able to hear everyone talk, I guess I'm still confused because I don't understand. I know that it is a law that you guys had to put the bathrooms in. My oldest daughter was here when that happened, and now that they're in place, it's affecting our other children, other girls most importantly, one being my daughter, and we have bathrooms that are in place for students, specifically, non-gender specific, and locker rooms, I guess. I'm hearing that now it doesn't really matter that everyone's allowed to use any bathroom that they choose. It does put us in a position because this is a safe place for everyone, I understand that, but it makes my daughter uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, and she's not the only one. So I guess maybe someone could help me understand how, if we put bathrooms in place specifically so that other students or all students are able to use that non-binary, then it really doesn't matter because I'm hearing that they're allowed to use any bathroom. Everybody is. And these are, I guess, boys who are identifying as girls, but they still have male body parts and they're in the girls' bathroom. If I'm in a public place and I see that happening, it's going to make me feel uncomfortable. And it's specific. It's not a non-gender bathroom. I guess maybe someone just has to help me out with that, and you don't have to do it right now, but maybe someone could call me, or so that I can tell my daughter something substantial, because basically you're saying that it doesn't matter, that you're just going to have to get used to it, but it's still making her feel uncomfortable, and along with other students as well. This is a bathroom. With that being said, I would appreciate that if someone could help me out at some point. I know you guys have my number. And then just rounding out, I just ask you and implore you to please have a contract. Please get it done. We love our teachers, we need our teachers. They are the backbone for our students. They're just as important as our police officers, firefighters. These are our teachers. And our students are also suffering as of now, those especially in AP classes, honors classes, and others, because they're not able to help our students because they don't have a contract, and it's time. Thank you, guys.
It's me again. Sorry to bother you. Originally I wanted to have somebody, another student from the elementary school, which is kind of hard to tell you what a paraprofessional does, or a parent, and that's kind of hard. So I did the next best thing is, I'm just going to read a couple of things that I've received from students and parents. Dear Mr. S., thank you for helping with my class this year. You always make me smile and laugh. Mr. S., thank you for keeping me safe and for all your help. It was great that I made her feel safe. Dear, this is from a parent. Dear Mr. S., we experienced this during COVID. We experienced a year unlike any other, and we will be forever grateful for those people who are all behind me who helped get our kids through it. Thank you for always keeping an eye out for a student who learned virtually for most of the school year. You helped her to feel a part of the class even when she wasn't physically there, and even came to visit her on her birthday. We will never forget your dedication to these kids as we all manage this school year through the pandemic. Thank you isn't enough. Teacher for some means an educational superhero, superb multitasker, and fixer of problems, an individual who loves and encourages. Thank you for caring for student each and every day. He has developed such love and respect for you. You have made such an impact on students schooling this year. It has been such a crazy school year with COVID, but your dedication on helping students didn't go unnoticed. I'm humbled and grateful, touched beyond words, for all the words of encouragement. I just want to say thank you. And this was from one of my co-teachers. Carrie, to say that I'm thankful for you this year would be an understatement. Your professionalism and dedication to our students has been such a gift. You kept us laughing even when we all wanted to cry. Anyone would be lucky to have you as a para in their room, and I'm so thankful to have had this opportunity. And I just want to let you guys know that every teacher and every para here probably has a stack of these in their desk that never get to be seen except for the eyes of the writer and the reader. So, thank you for your time.
Okay, seeing if there are no other public comments, I would like to make a motion to close public comment. Okay, second? Anyone? Second? Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, as we close public comments, I would like to thank all of the students, staff, and community members that came out tonight to support our staff and share their thoughts and perspectives with such passion, respect, and appreciation. We are so grateful to you for taking the time to participate and be part of the process. Your input is critical to the work that the Board of Education undertakes, and we hope that you will continue to come and stay engaged on all matters related to our district. The Board of Education values our teachers and staff tremendously and wants nothing more than to settle a contract that is fair to all parties and as soon as possible. From the start, both the negotiations committee for SHE and the one for the board have bargained in good faith with every intention to reach an agreement without the need for a mediator. Unfortunately, after about five meetings, it became clear that we needed to declare impasse and request a neutral mediator from the New Jersey Public Employment Relations Commission to continue to facilitate the process. PERC covers all employment and related issues in the state of New Jersey, not just for public schools. Unfortunately, they only have 3 to 4 mediators for the entire state, so appointments are often difficult to obtain, and we are at the mercy of their schedules. We had our first mediation session prior to Thanksgiving on November 22nd. Both sides were ready to bargain, but unfortunately, we were not able to settle that night. We chose to continue with the mediation process and scheduled another date. The first date the mediator was available is February 9th, and we scheduled that date on the spot. While we were exceedingly disappointed that so much time would have to pass before coming back to the table, the board committee remains as dedicated to reaching an agreement today as we have all along. A note to the public, to staff, to parents, and the students. The mediator was very clear that no information about the conversations held in mediation are to be shared with anyone outside of those committees. The board has very clearly been quiet about the contents of our discussion with SHE and the mediator. Despite that, there appears to be a sense or an abundance of rumor about the content and subject of our discussions, including that the board does not want to give the teachers a salary increase. How these rumors began is not known to us, and it's not really comprehensible. Nonetheless, they're out there. As such, I will caution everyone to be mindful that at no time has the board refused to offer the teachers a salary increase, nor has it demanded to reduce any benefits or salary. Nothing could be further from the truth. Union negotiations is a process that by its very nature requires compromise by both parties. We are confident with the help of a mediator, we will be able to reach an agreement that satisfies the needs of the Teachers Association and that of the taxpayers of the 4 towns that belong to this school district. The board's goal is to give our staff a fair salary increase, while also making sure we can provide all other resources to ensure our students receive the best education possible. Our staff is obviously one of the very most important contributions to the quality of education we offer here. And that is reflected in the fact that 76% of our annual budget does indeed go to salaries and benefits of our staff. 10% of our budget dollars goes to special education and other services. Another 5% goes to transportation, leaving only 9% of total budget dollars available for all other discretionary spending. Although not very exciting, and I'm sure no one wants to hear, that 9% has to stretch to cover utilities, supplies ranging from copier paper and toner, and cleaning supplies to phys ed equipment, facilities maintenance, unexpected or emergency expenses like boiler repairs, malfunctioning HVAC software, district vehicle repairs, plumbing issues, etc. It also has to cover monies allocated for long-range technology plans, which include necessary technology infrastructure upgrades, replacing antiquated phone systems, desperately needed Wi-Fi upgrades, and cybersecurity. None of that includes the additional requested technology upgrades across the 3 schools that are necessary to provide our students with an education that will actually prepare them to succeed in the 21st century. Annually, there is great expense to repair and purchase various new components and devices just to keep us running at the status quo. We also have to allocate appropriately to cover long-range facility plans created by our maintenance department and facility upgrades as outlined in our strategic plan and identified by our community as priorities. Our curriculum supervisors have also created long-range curriculum plans that outline when our curriculum ages out or expires, much of which is imminent. This comes at great expense and is a critical component in the education of our students. New curriculum development and supplies are also required to meet state requirements and new course development, which is necessary to support the needs of our student body and also meet some of the expectations of our strategic plan. In addition to this, so many of our budget dollars are earmarked for restricted use like title funds and grant money. To some, it may seem like there may have been a significant percentage increase in our annual budget funds over the last few years, but please also remember that we have received ESSER and ART funds that can only be used for COVID-related improvements and learning acceleration to help our students recover from deficits experienced throughout the pandemic. Those funds expire in 2024 and cannot be used to cover any ongoing expenses like salaries and benefits. As a public school in the state of New Jersey, we're dependent on the local tax levy, state funds, and grants to develop our budget. Each year, our budget is created to ensure that we remain below a 2% total tax levy increase. Additional increases require very specific steps that the board independently cannot control or dictate. We share your frustration in the protracted nature of the negotiations process. It is certainly not what we want or aspire to. We also remind the public that our staff is not working without a contract. They are working under an expired contract. But that means that they are still afforded every protection and safeguard, every benefit, and are paid their salaries under the contract that expired on June 30th, 2022. As always, we will continue to do our very best to balance all the needs of this district, including those of our students and staff. We thank you all again so much for sharing your time and perspectives to us. We appreciate it. And with that, I will open it to supplementary matters if anyone has anything to share.
And I have 2 things. First, I just want to give a huge shout out to the BMS and BHS choral staff who put together that Somerset Hill Saints program. It was absolutely phenomenal. My daughter participated and said she had the best day. And I was fortunate enough to be part of the culmination where they sang their 3 songs. And it was just amazing. So thank you for all the work that was put into it. It was a great day. The second thing I wanted to say was that I really just want to put something on the record as we start the new year. Back in August, I'm sure you'll all recall that we had a really lively discussion around the new health curriculum, and a whole variety of opinions and beliefs were shared.
from my viewpoint, this was normal and healthy board activity. As in order to reach the best decision for all students of the district, we as a whole need to consider all viewpoints and perspectives, no matter how broad a spectrum they cover. However, I think what really disappointed me was the way in which the minority viewpoint was sort of shut down. And what was even more egregious in my mind was the fact that many individuals around this table accused the minority of offering unethical options and accusing the minority of failing to uphold the oath of office by voting against the proposed curriculum. In my mind, making such strong and false accusations and planting these seeds in the minds of the public was irresponsible. I'd like the record to reflect that on December 29th, it was reported that the state itself cleared board members in Warren Township who were put up on ethics charges for voting against the health curriculum. So I guess the comments that were made here and the votes that were placed by the minority were not unethical at all. But the accusations were clearly uncalled for. Anyway, back to my point. As we move forward in this new year, I'm hopeful that everyone sitting around this table will be mindful and more responsible in how opinions of others are characterized, especially before the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to add a comment? Supplementary matters? No?
Sam, I just had one more from the public. As we're sitting here talking in the microphones, I've just gotten some feedback that when people are online, it's sometimes hard to hear. So I just wanted to bring that up, so maybe that could be something that's looked into.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. Thank you. Okay, if no one else has anything, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?